And this one carrying into the end zone about 4 yards deep. Here comes Nixon to the 5. Left hash marks 10, 15. Hits a hole hard. He's to the 25, 30. Breaks into the clear. Keyshawn Nixon is off to the races. It's Secretary of the Belmont. Down the split in time. No one will catch him. It's a touchdown. My goodness.
Came into the game weighing questionable with a groin injury. Didn't practice all week. And he just took it right up the gut, through the heart of the Minnesota Viking coverage unit.
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. If you'd like to email the show, you can send a message to PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text the show at 865-658-5824. We're going to cut to the chase. We got a very busy man. This guy is busier than a possum in a dumpster. I'm telling you, he's all over the place. Every podcast I turn on, we got Mr. Andy Herman from the Pack a Day podcast. Andy, how you doing today, bud?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me. I got to ask, what's the big board behind you? Is that like a fantasy draft board? What do we got there?
No, it's funny you asked that. I'm actually not a fantasy guy, but
okay.
I do a big board for the draft every year, and everybody makes fun of me. I've got the spreadsheet, but I just like the old school. But then, of course, after the draft's over, that's kind of the training camp roster. And it's funny you mentioned that, and everybody's going to think we coerced this, right? But we didn't. You're one of the people I follow on Twitter during training camp, and I like to just kind of tally up positives and negatives on that board right back there, and kind of give me an idea of how camp went. We all know we tally it up and go, yeah, this guy's getting cut. Lo and behold, he makes the team, and the ones we think is a shoe-in gets cut, but it's still fun nonetheless. So
very much so.
Awesome. All right, so let's do this. We're going to go rapid fire, Andy. Like I said, I know you're a busy guy. Appreciate you taking the time. I just wanted to kind of get your pre-camp filler, really, man. I know you're going to be there for training camp. You're always giving the updates, and I just wanted to kind of go position by position, or I guess position room by position room, if you will. And I just want you to kind of tell the listeners what it is that sticks out to you. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Or, hey, look, you might want to look for this. What are you expecting? That type of thing. That sound good?
Sounds fantastic. I'm excited.
All right, here we go. Let's start with the quarterback room. Of course, we got Jordan Love, we got Sean Clifford, we got Danny Etling, and of course, there's going to be some other camp bodies. Those are the three that really I'm going to kind of stick to the ones that more than likely will make the team, or at least be in a run and make the team. What sticks out to you there? Surely it ain't Jordan Love, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think the big thing here is like not only just training camp, not just preseason, the regular season, the entire season, all of it is all about Jordan Love. Like that's what this season is about. And I know Green Bay, the goal is always the goal. It's always playoffs and, trying to get beyond that, et cetera. But this season is all about Jordan Love. And that obviously has started already with OTAs and mini camps, him being the guy, him taking the reins. Now it goes into his first training camp as a starting quarterback, his first preseason games as a starter, and obviously eventually his first actual regular season as a starter. So just watching him, how he commands the offense, what struggles he has during the training camp process, which there's going to be some, and during preseason, et cetera. And then can he just have some of those moments? I think, when I go back to, and I like, we don't need to go like Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love and like how they're going to compare and contrast against each other. But when I go back to that season where Aaron took over as a starter, I very clearly remember some moments in preseason being like, oh, okay. Like, can Jordan have a few of those moments where it makes you, have that confidence going into the regular season? So I think it starts there. And then like the backup quarterback position, certainly not like without, like it's certainly worth talking about. Right. So at the backup, you have Sean Clifford, who is a 5th round pick rookie, and you have no idea what you're sort of getting yourself into. I was looking back at Danny Etling. I posted this today. Don't ask me why. But Danny Etling last season in preseason, 17 of 22, 77% completion percentage, 220 yards, 10 yards per attempt, touchdown, no picks, 9 carries, 73 yards and a touchdown. Like that's a pretty nice preseason. I think the issue with Etling, I was just looking at this too. Again, don't ask me why. He's going to be 29 years old in to like 11 days, 29 years old. So like, he's the 5th oldest player on the team. So like, this is not like some young developmental quarterback that you're like hoping like, all right, like any moment now, Danny Etling's going to break out and have that moment, right? Like it's kind of like do or die now or never. If he's not the number 2, there's not a whole lot of like reason to keep him around, right? So not only does he have to like win the number 2 job, like Sean Clifford probably not going anywhere. We know Goot loves to keep his guys, so he probably gets a 53-man spot no matter what. So like Elling has to win that number 2 if he wants a spot. If he doesn't, it's practice squad at best, and I'm not even sure he gets that at age 29. So those are the kind of the things that I'm looking at the quarterback position.
Absolutely. It's something I've been torn over too, because, you want that backup is really the personal assistant to the starting quarterback. And when you think of Sean Clifford, who really hasn't been around Jordan Love at all, it's like, will he play that role, good enough? It's definitely something worth mentioning for sure. And you mentioned that first start or when Aaron Rodgers kind of took over as starter. I was actually fortunate enough to be in Lambeau that Monday Night Football against the Vikings. And I tell this all the time. Sure. I will never forget that deep pass to Jennings. And I looked at a guy next to me and he went, Brett, who? You could see the arm strength, you could see the accuracy, everything. So, man, I'll tell you what, Andy, if he if we hit on this quarterback too, Chicago is going to burn, man. It's going to be horrible. So
it's so funny because like every other NFL team, I feel like wants like Green Bay to get its comeuppance. Like it's like, listen, you just had Favre, you just had Rodgers. Like you're good for a while now. Like you can't have another one. There are rules against this. Like you have to be bad for a while now. And I can only imagine like if he does play well, and we're not even saying like Hall of Fame worthy again or whatever, but even if he plays at like a decent Pro Bowl level at like some point, like people are going to be so ticked off because like I think everyone is just sick of Green Bay having like really good quarterbacks at this point. So hopefully he can be at least that caliber to just make people a little bit more upset.
Absolutely. All right. It's so hard to get off of the quarterback subject. We're going to do it. Let's go to running back. We got Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon, arguably one of the best, running back tandems in the entire National Football League. You got Patrick Taylor and of course the rookie Lou Nichols III. How do you feel about the running back room? And I imagine you're probably going to go towards Lou Nichols and Patrick Taylor. Are they going to carry 4? Are they only going to carry 3? What are you thinking there with that running back room, and even expectations for Aaron Jones if you want?
Yeah, so I think the easy thing here is like Jones is 1, Dillon's 1A or 1B, and like that's the easy part, right? I don't see anything really changing there. I think Aaron Jones is going to probably be the focal point of this offense while they sort of figure things out. Jordan's a first-time starter. You've got literally first and second year players at basically every wide receiver and tight end position outside of Josiah DeGuara and maybe Tyler Davis, right? So I think Jones and Dillon going to be a big focal point of this. So then it just becomes like, who's your number 3? Do they keep Remember, they only kept 2 at times, or they, just kind of called people up from the practice squad as well. So that's an option as well. But I think, you've got Patrick Taylor, who's like the master of nothing, but he does everything well. He's a good pass protector. He's a good power back. He can catch the ball in the backfield a little bit. He's always a little bit underrated, but he's a nice player. You got Tyler Goodson, who's all speed and has that, game-breaking ability. But the problem with Tyler is that the thing he does really well is be a running back. And you know what they don't really need from their number 3 guy? A running back, because Aaron Jones and, AJ Dillon are going to be the guys that are carrying the ball all the time. The number 3 guy is not really going to carry the ball, right? So you have to be a really good special teamer. You got to be able to come in, and if you do get snaps, be able to pick up the blitz, bring something different to the table. Tyler doesn't really have that. He's kind of like again, if you need to give the ball to somebody 20 times in a game, or at least like maybe get an explosive play, like Tyler's your guy, but they don't necessarily need that with Jones and Dillon on their roster. And then we know again that, Brian loves to keep his draft picks, right? And I wasn't super like, of all the draft picks, I thought Lou maybe had the most, nondescript rookie minicamp OTA of all the draft picks, which he's a 7th rounder. So that's not like super shocking, but he obviously is going to have a chance just based on being a draft pick as well. So I'm going to be focusing in on that number 3 spot. Does it go to Goodson, who's the best running back of the 3, Patrick Taylor, who's probably a little bit better special teamer and can do a little bit of everything, or just the draft picker? And does maybe Emmanuel Wilson, who's got some really nice size, a little bit of wiggle, can he get his name in the conversation as well? But it's certainly that number 3 that I'll be looking at.
Yeah, and you were exactly right. Last year, if I remember correctly, we broke camp with only 2 running backs. So it wouldn't surprise us all if we broke with 4 this year, right? It's just the way it kind of goes. But let's move on to wide receiver. We've got Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Samori Toure, Dontavian Wicks, Grant Dubose, Bo Melton, Malik Heath, Jeff Cotton, and we're also showing Deuce Watts here according to ESPN. What do you think about the wide receiver room?
I think the word opportunity comes to mind, right? Watson and Dobbs are going to be 1 and 2 in some capacity. And then like, if you're a young talented wide receiver, there's nowhere else in the league that you'd rather be than Green Bay right now, because there are legitimate snaps up for grabs. And yes, Jaden Reed, 2nd round pick, Samori Toure coming back. I think they're going to want to get him involved a little bit as well. But if you're Malik Heath, like the star undrafted free agent of the group, if you're Dontavian Wicks, a 5th rounder, if Grant Dubose is hopefully healthy at the start of camp, 7th rounder, Bo Melton, the guy they added to the 53 off of Seattle's practice squad a season ago, like your opportunities are there to go out and claim as many snaps as you can possibly get. And there's nobody entrenched in that number 3 spot right now. And this is a team that runs a lot of 11 personnel. I think we're going to see a lot of Tour. I think we're going to see a lot of Jaden Reed. I think we might even see Luke Musgrave as like a big wide receiver at times. But the opportunities are endless. And I think there's a huge opportunity for those young guys, with it, whether it be, Heath or Wicks or Dubose or Melton, just to compete for roster spots. But if they play well, it can go well above that as well. So that's what I'm mostly interested in, is who grabs that opportunity. A lot of talent there, a lot of unproven talent. And that's what I'm going to be keeping the biggest eye on, is just, who takes the bull by the horns and really runs with it.
Absolutely. This camp's going to be huge. It's going to be so much fun too. At preseason as well, seeing these young guys. Wow. It's going to be awesome. At the tight end position, we've got Luke Musgrave, Josiah DeGuara, Tucker Kraft, Tyler Davis, and they've even got a fullback on the roster, Henry Pearson, if he hasn't been cut. I haven't heard of him being cut.
Yeah, nobody's there.
Yeah, when I seen Henry Pearson, in no way, shape, or form did I think, okay, he's going to make the roster. But it kind of made me think, are they going to try to utilize the fullback a little bit more and maybe move Josiah DeGuara on into that now that they've got the 2 young tight ends? Of course, Tucker Kraft being able to play wide and Luke Musgrave being able to play a little bit of that F. How do you feel about the tight ends? Because we've been told in the past, Andy, you got to curb the enthusiasm on those first years. But then when you look at the great tight ends in the past, and in no way, shape, or form am I trying to say that Luke Musgrave is going to be, like a Travis Kelce or like a Kittle or those guys, but they seem to flash early. It's just the ones that are kind of mediocre. It does take 2 or 3 years where they are before they're starting material, but how do you feel about that tight end room?
I think there's a lot of excitement and hope there, right? But as you mentioned, young tight ends usually take a bit to get their feet underneath them. And I've had to sort of like temper my own excitement and expectations, because you watch Luke Musgrave at practice and it's not hard to immediately recognize, oh, that's different. And he is the most fun tight end from a traits and athletic standpoint that Green Bay has had since Jermichael Finley. There's been a Jermichael Finley sized hole on this team since Jermichael Finley got hurt. And they've tried different things. Jared Cook, a couple splashes here or there. The tight end who shall not be named that came from New England and Chicago, that did not work out well at all. Jimmy Graham didn't work well at all. There were some opportunities that they tried to do some things. It just didn't really work out in a lot of different ways. And this kid is insanely talented, awesome body control, great hands, like just the speed up the seam is incredible to watch, great size. He has it all. Like now the run blocking, the pass protection, the blitz pickups, all those are going to be a massive learning curve, and it's going to take him some time. And even with that being said, they've like Luke Van Ness, who we'll get to, has been running with like the 2s and 3s, like a lot of even the 3s.
Wow.
But it's not even necessarily anything against Van Ness. Like, it's just like, that's their process, right? Like they, in OTAs, mini camps, they're going to make sure that these rookies have to like earn their stripes. And then in training camp, we'll start seeing them get promoted a little bit. Luke Musgrave was tight end 1 from day 1. Like, and he has not given that up in any capacity. And Tucker Kraft really in a lot of ways has kind of been tight end 2 as well. Now, I think all 4 of these guys potentially, and Musgrave, Kraft, DeGuara, and Tyler Davis, have all rotational ability. There's a real world where Tyler Davis might be the best run blocking tight end on the roster right now, which seems crazy. But I think it actually is true. Josiah DeGuara, more that H-back fullback. You mentioned Henry Pearson. He's going to have to basically beat out DeGuara, I think, in order to have a shot. And just like if Green Bay would get to the point of like, all right, our top 3 tight ends are going to be Musgrave, Kraft, and Davis. And now who's just the better fullback? Like, who's going to be the better blocker in that capacity? Like, it would have to be like, they'd have to feel confident it was Pearson. I don't think that's going to happen in any way, but that would be his, avenue to the roster. And even guys like Austin Allen, Cameron McDonald, I think those are 2 players that are practice squad type guys. Austin Allen, big dude. Like, he is tall as heck, has some speed up the seam as well. He's going to have to improve his blocking. Cameron McDonald, kind of like a B- Josiah DeGuara. He's got a little bit of juice to him, more of that H-back tight end sort of type. But he's got some energy and he's kind of a fun player as well. So I really like this group on the whole. I think it's going to end up being a lot of Musgrave, Kraft, DeGuara, and Davis all rotating in and being used in a variety of different ways. But again, opportunity here for all of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you said that about Luke Musgrave, that from day one he's been tied in number one, the first thing that triggered in my mind, Andy, was Quay Walker last year. It's kind of how that went, right?
Yeah,
and we've seen he played. So that's going to be very interesting. Let's move on to offensive line. And I won't read them all off, but we'll kind of go down the line. ESPN's projecting this as the starting offensive line. David Bakhtiari at left tackle. We'll go left from right. David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, John Runyon, Yosh Nijman. Then we got Rasheed Walker, Chuck Falaga, Jake Hansen, Royce Newman, Zach Tom, Caleb Jones, Luke Tenuta. Let's just stop right there. How do you feel about this offensive line? Because I'm a big Zach Tom fan, and I would much rather see Zach Tom start at right tackle than Yosh. But of course, we pick up that tender with Yosh, and he's getting paid whatever it is, $4 million. You kind of that shows the value in him, right?
Yeah, potentially. But at the same time, they're going to start their best five, right? And I think that maybe the biggest, most obvious training camp battle for a starting spot right now is very arguably Zach Tom versus Yosh Nijman. And I think they're going to battle it out for the starting right tackle spot. I think there's a really good chance you get your wish, and that Zach is probably, I think maybe slightly the leader in the clubhouse to get that right tackle spot. But I think it's going to be a really well thought out battle. I think the other thing too is if anyone, let's say Zach Tom wins it and anyone else on the offensive line gets hurt, I think you're going to see Yosh at right tackle and Zach take who's ever place got hurt, right? Bakhtiari gets hurt, Zach Tom. Jenkins gets hurt, Zach Tom. Runyon gets hurt, Zach Tom. Myers gets hurt, Zach Tom, right? So, I think that's what you probably end up with. Or even if, Yosh wins the right tackle spot, he gets hurt, Zach Tom. So, you have 6 starters, and that's a really nice thing to have for Green Bay. And then I think the other thing that I'm going to be watching here is, let's look at this, right? So Bakhtiari, Jenkins, Myers, Runyon, Tom, and Nijman are 6 starting caliber players, right?
Right.
Royce Newman, Jake Hansen, Sean Ryan, Rasheed Walker, Caleb Jones, Luke Tenuta, those 6 have been on the 53-man roster. Those are 6 players that have been on the active 53-man roster, including Hansen and Newman, who have started games for them. So you have 12 guys right there without and that's not even saying if what a DJ Say for a Chuck Falagia or a Kadeem Telford, who I like, if one of those guys all of a sudden steps up and gets their name in the conversation, then you've got 13. Gene DeLance, who they really liked last year, they brought him in for a top 30 visit in the 2022 draft. And then once he became available, they didn't sign him initially. He became available during the season. They bring him to the practice squad, etc. So they have a lot of guys that they like in this offensive line group. And like I said, they have 12 guys who have been on the 53-man roster in some capacity going back to last season. So you're going to keep probably 9. So you're going to end up cutting probably 3 guys, at least 2 that have been 53-man roster players for you. So I think that is the other really fun thing that is going to kind of play itself out, is not just that starting right tackle spot, but who gets that 8th, 9th, maybe even 10th offensive line spot.
Wow, that's awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball. Let's start with the defensive line. They're projecting across the 3-man front. Of course, if we're in a 34 front, Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton at the nose, and then Devontae Wyatt. And then, of course, backups, you got Carl Brooks, Jonathan Ford, Chris Slayton, Kobe Wooden, and Jason Lewan. I'm really, really excited to see Wyatt this year. But how do you feel about the defensive line room?
Yeah. So first of all, I think we're going to see a lot of 2-man lines, right? We're going to see a ton of nickel, which we usually see. And I think you're going to see a lot of base nickel with Kenny Clark and TJ Slayton. I think that's going to be sort of their base. And because what you really have to do with that 2-man defensive line, they have to be able to hold up at the point of attack in the middle. Because if you're giving, Green Bay allowed 5 yards per carry a season ago. And if those guys can't stay stout at the point of attack, you're in for a really long season, and you're going to end up in a lot of 2nd and shorts and 3rd and shorts, and you're just in no man's land, right? Green Bay did a really good job when they were in 3rd and longs a season ago, but they just had a really tough time actually getting teams in 3rd and long. So I think you're going to see Slayton and Kenny Clark be the 2 guys that try to just eat up a ton of space in the middle of that base nickel defense. And then once you get into some of those more passing downs, that's where I think you start seeing Devontae Wyatt become a little bit more involved as a gap penetrating pass rush guy who can also defend the run when needed. And then your Colby Wood and your Carl Brooks, those are 2 kind of more pass rush guys as well. So I think they're going to be really smart with how they rotate those players. I was really impressed with how Jonathan Ford came in to OTAs and mini camps. He looked a little bit more sleek and slender than what he was a season ago. I'm interested to see if he can find his niche in this league as well. but I really like all 6 of these guys. There's a lot of hope and promise with these guys, but they actually have to put it together. We haven't seen, we've heard last year, TJ Slayton is ready to take a step. We saw flashes of it. We didn't see consistency. Devontae Wyatt, first round pick, and then like a 24-year-old first round pick. We're hoping that he's going to come in and just like blow the roof off the thing. He plays like 300 snaps and doesn't really get the opportunity to do that. Well, now he does. And then you get 2 day 3 selections this year, including Jonathan Ford, a day 3 selection last year. All these guys I like. It's just, how do they utilize them? And can these guys legitimately either A, take a jump, or B, be good as rookies? Because sometimes it's really hard and tough in the trenches in the modern NFL.
Absolutely. All right, let's go edge defender here. Let's go weak side first. We'll go Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, JJ Enagbare, Jonathan Garvin. They've got Justin Hollins listed. And then we jump back over to Brenton Cox Jr. and, of course, Ladarius Hamilton. I'll tell you, Brenton Cox Jr., I've heard you talk about him. I've heard other podcasters talk about him. Jacob and I, on one of my episodes, we actually jumped in and looked at some highlights and stuff. It's hard not to get excited when you see some of the flash plays he makes. But I think the big question, and I'm going to ask you this right off the bat, Andy. I can't get an answer from anyone, and I know why, but I've still got to ask it just so I can sleep tonight. Rashawn Gary, is he going to be ready week 1, or do you think it's going to be week 4?
Yeah, I wish I knew. I think if I had to guess, they're going to be as cautious with him as possible, right? Like, I think on some level, Green Bay probably understands, is as much as they're not going to say it, that they're probably not exactly competing for a Super Bowl this year. That's always the goal, but I think if they're being realistic about it, they're not making that giant push, right? When your number 1 free agent signing is Matt Orzik, you kind of are putting the writing on the wall that you're not exactly going all in on the season. So I think they're going to be super smart about it, and they're going to understand that this is the long game with Rashawn Gary. I would expect him to get a contract extension at some point, whether that's still in the offseason or during the season will remain to be seen, but he's going to get that extension. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. And they know that this is he needs to be a top 3-ish Packer for for Green Bay to be successful down the road. And like, they can't risk anything, a re-aggravation or him coming back too early. So listen, if he's ready to go week 1 and the doctors give it the complete all clear, yeah, there's no, chance of re-injury or anything, then yeah, like they'll put him out there week 1. But if there's anything, if there's like one, like, hey, we'd really feel better if it was like week 2 or 3, they'll probably just say, you know what, we're going to make sure and we'll, pup list them and make sure that he's ready to go, week 4, whatever it ends up being. So I think that's the first thing that we're going to be watching for, right? Is what, signs of progress is Rashawn making, and is he out there? And it's not unimportant when it comes down to that 53-man roster math too, right? Because there are guys, like you mentioned, whether it be Jonathan Garvin, Brenton Cox, Justin Hollins, Ladarius Hamilton, like those guys are probably hoping that there's another edge rusher spot available at the beginning of the 53-man roster cutdowns, right? And if Gary's on the pup list, that opens up a spot. If he's on the roster, that takes away a spot. And I think that if Gary's on it, like either way, I think they keep 5 from this group. I think you've got Gary. We know Preston and Enagbare and Van Ness are going to make it. And if Gary's there, then you've got one spot for Garvin, Cox, and probably Hollins, one of the 3 from that group. Yeah. If all of a sudden Gary's not ready, he's on the pup, now you're able to probably keep 2 of those guys, right? So it definitely changes the roster math a little bit. And I think that's what I'm going to be most watching is Gary's health. And then, that number 5/number 6 spot, depending on Gary's health.
Yeah. I think the one thing I would be disappointed about is if Gary isn't ready and JJ Enagbare, starts over Lucas Van Ness, and it's probably the right move, especially like you said, him running with the 2s and 3s, but I just want to see Lucas Van Ness on the field so bad, Andy. But as we've learned in the past, we've seen it with Rashawn Gary. It took forever to get him on the field, right? So
I'll say this really quick. I don't know what's going to happen with Rashawn Gary. I feel very confident as we sit here on July 11th that Lucas Van Ness is going to play a lot early and often. He's ready, like right now. Like this is different than Rashawn. Also, Rashawn was like Za'Darius and Preston had like their best seasons of their career in his rookie year, right? Like you could not take those guys off the field. It was like they were just too darn good. So that played a factor with Rashawn, but Van Ness is going to play outside. He's going to play on the defensive line. Like there's a good chance that the 4th defensive lineman on this team, actually, after, Clark, Slayton, and Wyatt, is Lucas Van Ness. Either way, he's in the top 4 of edge rushers in that rotation with Enigbari, Preston, Gary, and himself. If Gary's not ready, he's in the top 3 of edge rushers. He's going to play early often, and he's going to make an impact, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Good stuff. All right. Inside linebacker, we got Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker. They bring back Eric Wilson, Isaiah McDuffie. Tariq Carpenter is officially at linebacker now. And then you got a couple other camp bodies, Keyshawn Banks. Keyshawn Banks. They actually have Brenton Cox Jr. on ESPN listed on the depth chart inside too. I don't know how you feel about that. And then Jimmy Phillips.
He'll be an outside guy.
Yeah. So what do we think about the inside linebacker position? I know Quay Walker had a lot of tackles last year. Me personally, when I watched the tape, I wasn't as impressed as most, but I'm just a dumb redneck in Tennessee watching football, right? So how do you feel about the inside linebacker room?
No, it's you look at, I think there was a stat this week that somebody posted on Twitter. I think it was like the 33rd team or something that, like, in pass coverage, it was either them or PFF, one of the two, like in pass coverage, like he was one of the best inside linebackers in football, and the statistics look great. And there's a couple of plays that he makes, here and there too, that they make you go, okay, like that's why they took him in the first round. The tape was all over the place. You're not mistaken at all in watching that. I was more disappointed than not in the season that he had, but again, some really exciting and enticing flashes at the same time. So this is all about Quay, right? I think we know in some capacity, I think we saw the ceiling for Devondre 2 years ago. I think we saw the floor last year in Devondre. And I think somewhere in the middle is probably what we see out of him this year. It's going to be fine. Like, probably not spectacular like the first team All-Pro year, but I think he's still a really good player. And then this is all up to Quay. There's nobody behind him, whether, like, I like Isaiah McDuffie, but like that's the guy that you want as like your number 3 or number 4. Eric Wilson, really good special teamer. I'm excited about Tariq moving to linebacker. I think there could be a little bit of a niche role for him there, is maybe like the hybrid safety linebacker, maybe a little bit of a tight end coverage weapon sort of thing. But this is all about Quay. And if he takes a jump, this defense in the middle of the field is going to take a legitimate jump. If he doesn't, same as last year, it's going to be really disappointing, and it's going to be really tough to stop the run and be a better team up the middle. And you're looking at probably another team that really struggles on run defense if he's not ready to take that jump.
Got it. All right, let's move on to corner. We're coming down the stretch. We're going to do it anyway. We're going to hit our time limit, man. We got Jair Alexander. We've got Rasul Douglas. And then, of course, in the slot, it sounds like Keyshawn Nixon's going to take over at least early. And then, of course, you got Eric Stokes, where, got the injury up in the air there. You got Shamar Jean-Charles. You got Keandre Thomas, Corey Ballantyne, and then Carrington Valentine out of Kentucky. How do you feel about the cornerback room?
Yeah, like this group, I think the first thing to watch is, very similarly to Rashawn Gary, is what's up with Eric Stokes, right? Is this something that he's ready to go at some point in camp? Is this something where he ends up on the PUP list? Like, is this a nagging thing? And I think the other thing with Eric too is like, all right, so he had a very serious injury, like Liz Frank injury is nothing to, just write off. This is a guy who won with 4.340 speed. Like, it's not like he was the most technically sound corner in the world. It's not like he's like the most physical corner in the world. He's a great athlete, but his superpower was his 4.340 speed. If he comes back off of a Liz Frank, coming off a season where he was nowhere near his rookie season last year and just didn't play up to his standards, which he has said himself, and now he's like a 4.540 guy, that changes a lot with Eric Stokes. So not just is he back, but is he back to the player that he was prior to the injury? That's going to be a really big question mark. And then the other thing I'll say here is, let's just say whatever happens with Stokes, right? Let's just say he's not ready to go at the start of the season. You've got Jair and Rasul on the outside, Keyshawn on the inside. I like that group of 3. I really do. I think they're going to be totally fine, and if not really good, at the corner position there. The number 4 spot then becomes super interesting, because you are one injury away at that point from the next guy, not just like playing every single down. Like, you're playing like you're nickel defense or, dime defense in like every single play, right? Basically. So you're playing like 60, 70 snaps a game. Is that Carrington Valentine, a 7th round pick, who I loved in OTAs and mini camps, and I'm hoping he continues to impress? Is that, is that Shamar Jean-Charles? Is it Keandre Thomas? Is it Carrington Valentine? Or I'm going to do that a million different times. Carrington Valentine, Corey Ballantyne. Like, who's it going to be stepping up and really taking that number 4 spot? So really, really liked Carrington Valentine and what he showed, but the pads aren't on yet, and there's a long way to go for him. So who takes that next spot is going to be really interesting as well.
Yeah, and what was so interesting about Valentine to me, I'm a Kentucky fan, originally from Kentucky, and the fact that if I remember correctly, he came out early. It was like he could have stayed another year, but he
Yeah, I
decided
think
to come
so.
out early. That was kind of like, whoa, okay, maybe, I mean, he's really betting on himself, right? Especially the fact that you can make money in college football now, but that's a story for another day. Let's move on to safety. So at the safety position, this is interesting to me. They've got it listed Jonathan Owens as a starter at strong safety, Darnell Savage at free safety, then Rudy Ford, Anthony Johnson Jr., Tarvarius Moore, Dallin Levitt. Now, we all know in this Vic Fangio style, Joe Barry defense, the wide 9 quarters, whatever you want to call it, typically those safeties are very interchangeable. They want to keep both of them on the shelf. No longer do you have the strong and the free safety. It's just they've got to be able to interchange, move in and out. For me personally, I'm a big Rudy Ford fan. I would like to see Rudy Ford playing that left safety. And then, of course, I think Darnell Savage, paying him almost $8 million. You got to put him, in that starting role, at least give him a chance to be the starter, although he's underperformed. But what do you think about them loading up on safety with all of these bargain deals, right? I mean, this is kind of like to me, it seemed like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, like they took multiple swings, cheap free agency to try to say, let's see if these guys that we probably had pretty high draft grades on when they came out, let's see if they can stick. How do you see the safety room shaking out? Because this is probably the biggest, the most vulnerable spot on the roster, right?
So you've got Darnell Savage on the last year of his deal. Then you've got Rudy Ford on a 1-year deal. It's a small 1-year deal. It's a Tarvarius Moore, small 1-year deal. Jonathan Owens, a small 1-year deal. Dallin Levitt, a small 1-year deal. All right, pop quiz for you. Of those 4 small 1-year deals, who got the most guaranteed money?
The most guaranteed money for a 1-year deal, right?
Yep.
That's
So out of out of the 4 1-year deals. So Rudy Ford, Jonathan Owens, Tarvarius Moore, and Dallin Levitt.
Oh, gotcha. Well, they signed Tarvarius Moore first, right? But I
Yep,
can't answer that question. Is it Rudy?
It is actually Dallin Levitt, of all people, got the most guaranteed money of those 4 safeties. The point being is none of them got really much guaranteed at all. And the bigger point being is that they all have to earn their job in training camp. And what I would say here for these safeties, the 4 guys that I just mentioned, and then as well as Anthony Johnson Jr. and Ennis Gaines, like those 6, Darnell Savage makes the team because he's got a guaranteed deal, completely guaranteed deal. And he just probably has a spot on the roster by default. You can't really do anything with it. You cut him, you pay him the exact same amount of money anyway. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to do that. And he might very well be the best safety on the team, at least in the conversation, right? So he's probably the one guy that's safe and probably the one guy that just kind of gets the starting nod, right? After that, out of Rudy Ford, Jonathan Owens, Tarvarius Moore, Anthony Johnson Jr., Ennis Gaines, all of those guys, if you told me any of them was the other starter, sure, I could totally believe it. If you told me any of them were released before the end of training camp, sure, absolutely could believe that too. And I think Anthony Johnson Jr. probably the most likely next guy to make the team just because he's a draft pick. But this is a late 7th round pick. There's no guarantees on those guys either. So that would be my next best bet to have a roster spot. But it is going to be a complete free for all. Like you said, they took a bunch of 1-year flyer types and said, hopefully a couple of these guys stick and we can just make them decent safeties, and hopefully everything else in front of them works out well so that they can last line of defense and see what sticks. But I think it's going to be a really interesting battle, and they probably end up being the worst safety group in the NFL in the end of the day, but you never know what happens.
Got it. Love it, man. You absolutely crushed it. I'm telling you, I'm looking so forward to getting your camp updates. We really appreciate all the hard work you put in, man. It's finally paying off. I know we've seen the news here lately, how things have changed, and you're really, really keen on that full time, man. It's a dream come true. It's exciting, and you deserve it, and we really appreciate it. This only thing I ask of you is please don't ever, ever, ever mention again that we had Keyshawn Nixon block him for Amari Rodgers on punt return. Okay, that it just instant depression. So
it really was. I've been going back and watching last year's games over, which I don't recommend to anyone, especially that 5-game losing streak in the middle, which I'm in the midst of right now. It's not super fun, but it's just interesting the things that pop out at you, and seeing that first game with Jake Hansen at right guard and Royce Newman at right tackle with Zach Tom on the bench. It's oh my goodness. And you see Sammy Watkins sniping snaps from Romeo Dobbs and Christian Watson. It's oh my man. And then the first game, you see Amari Rodgers doing a fair catch and Keyshawn Nixon blocking in front of him. And it's just what is going on? And then Amari has like an awful muffed punt against I don't know. He had 1,000 of them. So it's hard to keep track of which one it was. He has an awful muffed punt. And then you're like, all right, this must be the time where they like benched him as punt returner and then went with Keyshawn. And then you get to the next game and Amari's back there punt returning again. It's just like, yeah. So fun times to say the least.
Devastating. Well, we've kept you too long. Andy, thank you so much for your time, buddy. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, man. Have a great night. All right, that was Andy Herman from the Pack-A-Day podcast. Really, really appreciate his time hopping on with us. Just an awesome guy, man. You guys, I'm sure if you found this silly little podcast, you're already following him and tuning into everything he's got going on. Just an awesome, awesome dude. We're going to bring Jacob in now from the Packernet Fantasy Podcast and just kind of recap what we heard here a little bit, man. I'll tell you what, Jacob, he rapid fire, baby. That's how we promoted it. And that guy just carving out 30 minutes for us is absolutely huge. But man, oh man, does he get you excited about camp or what, dude?
Yeah, that guy's the best, man. Like you said, his Twitter updates are like just so poignant, and his YouTube, I just love the way he does it. He's so quick to the point. His titles are never not what they're advertised, and he tells you all the information you need. There's not a lot of fluff, not a lot of filler. He does it with a little bit of a subtle humor and sarcasm, and it's good stuff, dude. I was surprised at a lot of the takes he had. If you want to go through a couple of them, we can talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
I mean, not really much to really talk about with quarterback. It is what it is. I thought it was interesting, his take on Tyler Goodson, because we had like Big Mac on last night, talking about how much he loved him. I personally, right now, I would have put Tyler Goodson in my running back 3, but after hearing that specifically and simple explanation of why they wouldn't keep him is because he's just I shouldn't say just a running back, but he's a pure running back. He's a really good running back, but he's not a special teamer necessarily over a guy like Patrick Taylor or maybe even Lou Nichols or one of those deeper guys we haven't gotten to learn about. So that makes a little more sense as to why he could be a casualty in that way. But I thought that was
another thing about that too is think about if you're losing late in the game and God forbid Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon go down and you need Patrick Taylor to come in or you need that running back to come in, you want that guy pass protecting. He was one of the best pass protectors, of all the running backs last year. I know Aaron liked him a lot. I believe, if I remember correctly, the play to Big Dog in Miami where they just kind of threw in on the fly a little wheel route down the sideline, that great catch. I believe Patrick Taylor was the one who kind of made that play happen in pass protection. But what else were you going to say there?
No, I heard him talking about how Musgrave is he's the true number 1, getting all those reps. I mean, 1, that's great for all my fantasy teams that I've drafted because I always pepper in a little Luke Musgrave right at the end. But 3, because just the fact, other than Dalton Kincaid, the rookie that's over in Buffalo, I haven't heard much about them rookie tight ends being split out as a wide receiver, but those 2 specifically, they said they've got the body frame and they're so fast off the line that they could be a matchup nightmare for anybody in the slot. So imagine if there's a world where we have Watson and Dobbs on the outside with freaking Musgrave in the slot, and who knows? I mean, that would just be amazing. But then the fact that he said that Tucker Kraft could be our day 1 number 2, and that he could be our best blocking tight end. I did see another breakdown of a different YouTuber who highlighted the fact that he was very willing to block. He didn't have a lot of time in college, and the college wasn't against necessarily the best of competition, but he was a willing blocker, and I saw a couple of them where he did the pancake. You could tell he was super pumped, did that Tucker Kraft, flex move. But is that Tim?
Yeah, we got Tim in the house here on the line. How you doing, Tim? Uh-oh.
Hey, guys.
There he is.
All right. What's going on, buddy?
Man, just looking at my notes.
Right. Same here.
That's what I was doing. One thing I thought
we didn't cover kicker, man. What's up with that? What?
It's funny, man. I was going to say, all right, who do you got winning the kicker position, Andy? But I looked up and we were 2 minutes over on our time. I'm like, now's not the time to be funny. This dude has got so much going on. So we just let him go. But, yeah, it's worth mentioning, though. It's I'm kind of looking at Mason Crosby out there, still a free agent. But I just don't see any way possible that they would. The only way I could see Mason coming back and is if Andrews goes down with an injury, right? And that way you kind of preserve that 4-year contract as a rookie. But I think with them drafting Andrews or Anders, however you say his name, I think he's going to be the kicker. Yeah, I've heard Anders. I've heard Anders. Down here, we would definitely say
there's a hard on.
On? Okay. Come on. What do you got to do it, man? Come on.
Hey, hopefully he kicks well enough for us to actually know how to say his name, right?
There you go. That's the goal, right? For sure. We got Dakota in the hopper here. As a matter of fact, let's go to Dakota in case he's at work. I'm not sure what he's got going on. Let's hear from him real quick, and then we'll get him out. Dakota, what's going on, buddy? What'd you think about all that?
Well, hey, first of all, can you hear me? Because I got some Bluetooth in for some reason.
Yeah, we got you, man.
Cool. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. It's kind of like a clash of worlds, having you and Andy on the same thing. I've been listening to Andy for a while before I discovered Packernet, so it's kind of cool. But no, I like
Andy's awesome. Yeah, he's great at what he does. He's like Jacob perfectly summed it up, man. You want good training camp details, straight to the point. It's perfect. Go ahead, bud.
But yeah, no, I liked how succinct he was and everything. But I know y'all already mentioned earlier how he seems to think the third running back is, he'll be less of a running back rather, because the third running back's probably not going to run with the ball that much. But I like what Malcolm said yesterday too about being in the Tyler Irvin role. I know I've already mentioned it once on Packernet After Dark, but that's what I'm looking for. I want more motion. So all this speed, that's why I keep saying I'm so excited about this speed, because I want more of that. I want more motion. That's what I want.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I don't know if you guys are listening to Play Callers or not. The new podcast that dropped, 5-part series. Matt LaFleur's in it. It is phenomenal. It was so much. I don't know how to explain it. You guys have heard me over and over and over saying this is Matt LaFleur's offense, and I seem to be I don't want to say the only person, but in the minority screaming this is Matt LaFleur's offense. This is the McVay version of this offense, because Sean McVay, what he did with this offense when he went to LA is he looked up and said, man, in order to get my best players on the field, I need to stay in 11 personnel. So he found ways to use 11 personnel but still get to the same passing concepts. But that got him away from that style of running game a little bit more. Now, granted, that first year and that first time they went to the Super Bowl, they had Todd Gurley, which was one of the best backs in the league at the time. But it just kind of, to me, it told the story on that podcast. You guys have got to go listen. I think it's episode 2 or 3. It told the story of how he got into 11 personnel and away from what Kyle Shanahan was doing a little bit. And it was because you want to get your best players on the field. And really, to sum it up real quick, he said he looked out there and said, how in the heck is Cooper Kupp not on the field for us? Like, we have got to change something, get our best 11 on the field. But when you talk about motion and things like that, it's going to be very interesting, because what you then seen was Doug Peterson and the Eagles win a Super Bowl with the RPO. Now the RPO kind of invades all of this wide zone boot Shanahan style offense. So when you talk about the motion, the fact that we haven't seen as much motion, maybe that kind of comes back this year a little bit, because everything's cyclical, within the NFL. But I'm with you on speed. That's why I'm so excited to see Jaden Reed and Christian Watson back on the field together. But Jacob, what other note do you got, man?
One thing, just because it sparked a note that I took earlier when he was talking about how the Packers defense allowed 5 yards per carry. In addition to that, as a first down defense, we allowed 6 yards at least on an average on first down, which, I mean, right there, that kind of sums up, I think, the whole reason our third down defense was actually pretty darn good. But the fact is they never really got to the third down when you're getting 6 yards a pop on first down. So if that kind of was around that area when you're talking about Devontae Wyatt, and it kind of got me jacked up because I was a big TJ Slayton fan. So if he really thinks that TJ Slayton and Kenny Clark are getting the bulk of those snaps on the interior, that still is a kind of something that gets me excited. And then just the fact, again, he talks about Luke Van Ness just being a freak of all freaks, that he is going to be going inside here and there, and that he's just still taking on that role as that lead, maybe even a day one starter at edge. I mean, that just gets me excited. Like you said, I wouldn't mind seeing Kingsley in there every now and then, but I want him taking the bulk of the snaps if it's possible.
I do too. I want to see what we got there early and often for sure. And when he talked about TJ Slayton saying those early nickel downs, where teams are in the majority of the time in 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets, that triggers your nickel, but they're still running out of the nickel. You want that big body nose in there, right? And then, of course, Kenny playing opposite of him. And if that keeps Devontae Wyatt fresh for the passing downs, that's exciting, right, Tim?
Absolutely. Sorry, I was on mute.
No, you're good, man.
And Jacob took all of my good points. We take the same notes.
There you go. Jacob's been cheating on tests for years. I can tell you right now, man. That dude, he that's just the way it is. Dakota, is there anything you want to talk about before we let you go, buddy? We're actually at the 43-minute mark. I'm glad you guys hopped on here. Anything else stand out to you? Anything you want to hit on before we let you go?
No, unfortunately, I was ordering at Subway during a portion of.
Hold up. Here's the real information. What did you order? I didn't know what you ordered.
Oh, come on, man. Sweet onion chicken teriyaki is what I go for all the time.
That fits his personality perfectly.
Well, yeah, it does.
You want to get rid of those love handles, man. That sweet onion sauce doesn't have much in it at all, dude. You gotta do what you gotta do, man. You're a married man, Dakota. You know what it's like, dude. You got happy wife, happy life.
Absolutely. But I did. Some of the bit that I missed was him talking about the safeties. So I've only been watching football since about 2016. So I'm brand new. I'm just still learning concepts. Like today, I went over the Tampa 2. And because I was thinking about it, and I looking into it. If Quay Walker is our middle linebacker at the time, he's so quick, he would be the perfect middle linebacker for the Tampa 2 defense, as far as I know. Of course, I don't know.
Great
enough. I'm still learning.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, and I know PFF put out that graphic that showed how he was one of the top, however many linebackers in pass coverage. So, I mean, that would work just fine for the Tampa 2. So, I was hoping to hear his his view on the safeties. Who did he think that might be our second safety, really? Because I know we got Savage. And did he think it was Rudy Ford or?
He didn't. I didn't. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob. I didn't get the vibe that he thinks it's a slam dunk Rudy Ford. I think the way he looked at it is it's going to be a fierce competition, and he wouldn't be surprised if any of those four guys got cut. Now he pointed out that now you got to look at the guaranteed money, right? Who's got the most guaranteed money? Obviously, like you said, Savage is fully guaranteed, and then when you look across the board, it's kind of you could see a scenario where any of those guys don't make the roster. You could also see a scenario where any of them could be the starting safety. It's going to be good competition, man, and that's how you come up with good football teams. This whole thing, it's what bothered me about Josh Myers the last 2 years. Is just like, okay, you're the starting center, and there was no competition. And I don't think Josh Myers is a horrible football player. Don't get me wrong, but when you don't have any kind of competition, and like he said, you're looking over at Zach Tom sitting on the bench. And times when you're starting people like Royce Newman that obviously underperform, it's tough. So when it comes to the safety position, though, Dakota, man, it's all about competition. Do you agree, Jacob?
Yeah, and then the other thing, Dakota, I'm not sure if you heard it, but out of the four guys that are on a 1-year prove-it deal as safety, the guy with the most guaranteed money is Dallin Levitt.
It's wild. And
I did hear that.
And what's crazy is that's one of your big special teams guys, right? So it's like, okay, is he going to be playing special teams?
Did he get that sweetheart deal from Rich? Because wasn't he like the first special teamer that he brought over from Oakland?
Yep. Yeah, he brought in him. He brought in Keyshawn, and then of course it was under his recommendation to go out and get Pat O'Donnell because he had ties with Pat. I think when Pat might have been with the Raiders way back in the day too. It's cool, man, to see how this whole thing's unfolded. And you were talking about Tampa too, Dakota. Another thing that's in that podcast, you guys, I'm telling you, man, you'll absolutely love it. Is it talks about how this Fangio defense kind of took over, and it talks about how Robert Saleh came from Seattle's cover 3 zone defense. And when he comes to the 49ers, what they seen happen was running this wide zone running game. Bill Belichick absolutely shut down the LA Rams in Sean McVay's first Super Bowl. And the way he did it was by presenting a 6-man front and playing what they call a wide 9 technique, which is way outside. And that takes away your outside zone, right? So that's how they did it. So then what you started to see with Saleh was what they called a wide 9 cover 4. So you had a wide 9 on the edges, taking away the outside zone. As this whole Shanahan system is taking off, what you had McVay do behind the scenes was going, how can we stop it? Because this is multiplying across the league, just like the normal West Coast offense did way back in the day. It was really, really exciting just to hear how all that came into play. And then, of course, Fangio style of quarter coverage, you're showing that same pre-snap look with 2 safeties on the shelf. They're playing top down. But what Fangio did was implemented a lot of match coverage, which means there's man principles included in that cover 4. You know, that palms look, things like that. We don't go down all those rabbit holes, but you digging into the Tampa 2, keep doing that stuff, dude. I'm telling you, because I heard you say on Packernet After Dark, I believe it was you, Dakota. You said I think it was 2016, and my memory's bad, but I think you said 2016 is when you really started to pay attention and kind of diving into football, dude. It's a whole different world. You see the game so different on Sunday when you really start understanding what teams are trying to accomplish both offensively and defensively. It's really, really cool. So that excites me to hear that you're diving into it, man. Anything else, buddy?
Oh no, I was just I'm just interested in seeing how that second safety turns out and how Quay himself turns out. Because if we can get those two, I really think that could be either the weakness of our defense or the strength, depending on how them two turn out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on, man. I really do. I think that center field safety and the way that quarters look starts will be 2 on the shelves, but there's a rotation that happens where you end up either in a cover 4, a cover 3, a cover 6, or you're playing man coverage with a single high safety. I think that safety that plays center field is absolutely huge. I mean, you've seen it over and over through the years. You know, the Super Bowl win that the Packers had over the Steelers, who was nailing Greg Jennings every time he caught the ball down the seam, right? It was Palomala. They had a great safety. All the great defenses have. When you go back to the Baltimore Ravens, who did they have? Ed Reed, right? I about said Andy Reid. Could you imagine the big Kool-Aid man out there playing free safety? But it's something I think it's really, really overlooked. You know, I don't think it's any coincidence that we have one of the best defenses in the league the year we won a Super Bowl, and guess who was playing free safety center field? Nick Collins, right? So, but we appreciate you hopping on, Dakota. We're going to let you go, man. Thank you so much for your time. You have a great evening and enjoy that sweet onion chicken teriyaki, unless you already finished it. I don't know.
No, I'm about to dig into it now. Y'all have a nice one.
Appreciate you, Dakota. All right, Tim, what else you got in your notes there, man? We got about 10 minutes left. We're going to sign off. Anything else stick out to you with what Andy said? Because what's so cool is as the dust kind of settles and we get ready for camp, you're starting to see the camp battles emerge, right? Right tackle, safety. This is the stuff we're going to be looking at on a day in, day out basis, right?
Yeah, and what sticks out to me is, Andy brought it up. You guys brought his name up. Dakota just brought his name up, and it's Quay Walker. And I'm just going to say this: I will gladly, happily, any day of the week carry the torch for Quay Walker, and I believe in him. And I think the fact that he was thrown into the fire last year as a rookie and had to play a lot of downs, played a lot of football, you do a lot of growing in just one season. So if anybody on this team that I'm excited for a sophomore year, it's on the defensive side, it's definitely Quay Walker first, and I think to Dakota's point, depending on how we're scheming up and how we're playing this year, he can be that versatile defender as he grows into this position, whether it's attacking from the edge, whether it's falling back in pass coverage, side to side. I noticed he gets to the sidelines laterally across the field pretty well too, chasing guys down. Finishing plays is going to be something that, he's hungry. He just needs to, I think, play, I don't want to say play within the system. That's what everyone's supposed to do. But, I mean, play within his system, his internal mindset when he's out there, when he's in pursuit or when he's in coverage. I think a lot of it's got to be, he can develop, but he's got to trust that development too. So if he's making strides, he's got to believe in himself. And I don't think that Quay is lacking self-confidence. I think maybe last year he was lacking some clarity, and I think that's what's come this offseason. I think we're going to see that in year 2. So Quay Walker sticks out to me, and with Andy talking about him taking that leap, and I fully believe we're going to see it this year. And man, that linebacker room is going to be interesting. Just like we talked about safety and the edge. I mean, my gosh, like if this defense can put them in the old vice grip and lock them down, man, we're going to be deadly this year. I really believe it.
I think so too, especially if we lean on the run a little bit more and kind of get back to the roots of leaning on the run and playing that play action with a little more boot. You know, we seen they didn't run as much boot with Aaron because he's not the same quarterback he once was as far as the legs go. But with Quay Walker, it's crazy. Andy said you could see he was great in pass coverage. You go to PFF, they said that was what he was best at, so that completely checks out. The thing I loved about Quay was just how violent he was when he got to the football, right? It was just when he made a tackle, I couldn't tell you how many times in the notes I have for the post-game show, Jacob, it was violent. Quay Walker, violent. When he got there, dude, and you remember the fumble recovery too, right? I think he actually forced the fumble when Rudy recovered it, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was just, I mean, that he's got those instincts, and the fact that he spent so much time on the field, man, let's hope he puts it all together this year because it could be a game changer, Jacob.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you. I think it was from. I don't remember I don't want to mess up the YouTube name, but it was a perfect, like 4.5 minute clip, and it showed in the beginning like some great highlights, and then it showed where he needed to. He honestly whiffed, but he could have had like 3 more sacks, like 3 more stops behind the line of scrimmage. He could have had a couple like really highlight, like you would have been wow plays, but he either just whiffed on he was really susceptible to juke moves. So if he gets to maybe use his eyes a little more, I remember when I was a kid, always watch the waist, you don't watch his legs, the head, that sort of thing. He just, like Tim was saying, he's a rookie thrown out there to the Wolves playing basically. I think he played all 17 games, didn't he? Or close to it.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
Then,
I love. Isn't it funny how the stuff from your childhood comes back, like the stuff you learned playing football, right? Like, yeah, I mean the whole hips. What I always think about is Shakira. Hips don't lie, right? Hips. And whether you're on a basketball court or whatever, man, it's so true. You lock onto that midsection, you won't get fooled, right?
Yep.
God, that's good stuff, dude. Good old.
I
days.
like what you said, Clayton, about just violent at the point of contact, man. Just like he did, with that beastie Georgia Bulldog defense, man. And man, that's the Quay that we want to see. And he's got a heart of a lion, heart of a champion. That guy is a champion, and he wants to win at this level a lot, really bad. I know that. I'm not speaking for him. I don't know him personally, but I got a feeling, man, that he could be a real solid anchor in this defense going forward. So go Quay, go Pack, go. I'm definitely going to be, like I said, on the defensive side. When I'm at camp, my eyes are going to be locked on number 7 out there this year.
Heck yeah, we're going to work you like a mule, bro, while you're at camp. We're going to be asking you questions. We're going to be getting pictures and everything, man. So it's nice to have some boots on the ground out there for sure. But,
absolutely, man.
All right, brother. We'll let you go. We'll get ready to wrap this big bear up. We appreciate you hanging out with us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks,
take care,
Tim.
bye.
All right, bye.
Awesome. So that was Tim in Green Bay. Yeah, man. It's of course Dakota in the chat says I need to see Quay knock some folks in the next week. Yeah, dude, it's coming together, man. And again, we do this every day. It's the 11th now, so
we're just saying, two
weeks away. Yeah.
2 weeks, man.
It's wild.
You know what else is kind of cool?
Yesterday we were going into the draft and everything.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, think about it like this though. So we're basically in the dead of the dead zone. Let's look at the last just like 5 days. Friday, you had that awesome interview with Tony Mandrich. Saturday, you had a great show. Had Tim calling in. Sunday, we did our post game that we kind of get used to with Ryan, myself, and you. Yesterday, we had an awesome breakdown session with Big Mac, and then today you're with Andy Herman. Who knows what's going to be in store in another 3 months, guys, when we're actually have football going. We have highlights to talk about, stats to talk about. Oh my God, it's going to be almost too much.
And dude, it's a testament to the Packers fans, really. I mean, Andy Herman's a Packer fan. You can see it. You can hear it in his voice, right? Mm-hmm. All these people we talked to. I mean, you've seen Tony Mandarich with the Green Bay hat on, right? That just fired me up because I don't know how he feels about the Packers. We're going to have a conversation about it. Boom, camera comes on. He's got his Packer gear on. I was like, that's freaking awesome. It just, I don't know, man. When you got so many great people in the community, like you said with Big Mac, with Malcolm, he was just you could tell he's passionate about the Packers. I know you're one of the diehard Packer fans. That's what makes this stuff great, man. I'm excited about it. And it's funny, we've had some great guests, and we're going to have more of them. And most of them will be returning, I'm sure, if unless my accent scared them off. But the one thing that Peter Schrager said from Good Morning Football, and I like Peter Schrager. He's one of the few people on that show I can stomach because he's a real insider. He's got great relationships, great friendships with the McVay tree. Has a great podcast. I'm going to curse here, so if you got kids in the room, earmuff it. But he said something one time that really resonated with me because he asked Sean McVay, hey, what advice do you have for people that want to be coaches? And then Sean McVay, which is so freaking huge, he turned around and asked Peter Schrager and said, hey, what advice do you have for people trying to break into your business? And you could tell he kind of blushed. You could hear it in his voice. But he said two things, really. Work hard and don't be an asshole. That's what he said. And it's true, man. True. If you don't buy into all the Twitter beefs and you don't get into all the arguments, then you meet some really good people. Choose to see the positive in everything. And the ones that are going to act like knuckleheads, hit that freaking block button and move on, man. That's all you can do. That's it. Life's too short. But, yeah, I'm excited. I appreciate you, reading all those off and everything. Up next is going to be Kurt Benkert. We're probably going to get him on here in the next week or two. I got to check in with him. That dude's traveling the world, but what an awesome guy. Awesome. And we got a couple other ex-Packers too that are in the hopper. We'll see what happens there. I'd like to check in with Krista Watson too, man. To kind of see, hey, now that your son's been in the league for a year, what's changed? What's the mindset going in, this and that. I guarantee you she still got that Bulldog mentality. It was just awesome. When the way she signed off too, go kick some, what, it's just like, that's where that kid gets it from. So yeah, pretty cool. Anything else you got, buddy, before we wrap this thing up? I appreciate you taking time to hop on here, man. I know you were in the queue listening to the interview with Herman too. So
yeah, no, it was just interesting. I felt like kind of a fanboy sitting there. It's kind of cool. Like you said, meeting people that, that's the dream basically. We're watching that guy do what all of us would love to do, work. And then all of a sudden it pays off. And yeah, like you said, can't happen to a better guy. So I'm pumped to just sit here and listen to you guys talk football. It's pretty cool.
Heck yeah, dude. Awesome. Well, let's wrap this big bear up. I got to go downstairs and try to save my marriage because I'm usually done way earlier than this. So
yeah, dude, it's late.
We're going to get out of here. We appreciate everybody stopping in, man. We had some great viewer counts there. I really, really appreciate how the chat laid low tonight. We had more viewers tonight than we've had ever on a live stream, and there was no chats other than, obviously Dakota, who was in here with us just a second ago. And it's, there's a time when you just got to shut up and listen, right? And I try to stay out of the way when Andy was talking, but we definitely appreciate his time. Jacob, thank you so much for hopping on, dude. Hey, we're getting more and more consistent with this, dude. And I don't know about you, but I'm having fun, man.
Dude, think about where we've come now from where we were just like a few short months ago. It's getting nearly professional.
Yeah.
Borderline.
If I get some speech classes, we're golden, right? That's all we need. So we appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack go.
For Jordan Love.
37. Here he is throwing in the middle. It's caught by Watson. He's got great speed. Turning the corner. Christian Watson down the sideline. And he will score. Whoa. Hang on. Love to Watson. To a one-score game.
This one is the stunner. You basically feel like, all right, this Eagles team sort of has this thing under control, and then Christian Watson hits the Jets again. 6 touchdowns now in the last 3 games. He is really something. When he gets in the open field and running, that was some throw by Jordan Love, too.